This is some Morini valve gear, off a 350, but the 500 is the same and the 501 is only slightly different, just to do with the length of the rocker shaft and an extra spacer, because they move the valve guides apart for bigger valves. This came off a bike I recommissioned for a friend earlier this year. It had stood in sheds and got a lot of condensation under the rocker covers, to the extent that I was actually mopping water out of them, and there was quite a lot of corrosion on the valve gear. Wherever the oil film had got thin enough, there was quite big rust furs. I don't know if I can show you here, but on this adjuster nut you can see it's nice and bright and shiny, but its mate just over here, all that black is actually quite a deep corrosion pit where I've cleaned the rust up. Now, it wasn't too badly worn. All the shim washers, I should just say, these are very easy assemblies to dismantle. You've got a circlip, the fixed support block, the inlet valve rocker which sits between the two blocks, then you've got a split support block which actually clamps the shaft, the exhaust rocker, the shims either side of each rocker, and then one more circlip on the end of the shaft, and it's as simple as that. And when you're putting these on the engine, you push the two blocks together to adjust the end float on that rocker, push the whole shaft through to get the end float on this rocker, and tighten up the clamp. Now, the rocker tips tend to wear a little. This has actually got very little wear in it. I normally like to take these down with a diamond file, take the ridge off the edge, which means I can measure the clearance easily with a feeler gauge. And there's one, in fact, that I've cleaned up, but that one wasn't cleaned up so much for wear as it was for corrosion. And you can see all the black pitting on that one, but they will clean up, they'll be fine. The bushes were worn in these rockers, and the original style bush, which is steel backed with a bronze lining, and it's a split bush, these were quite scored because the shafts were corroded, but not a lot of wear in them. I've got another set of rockers that are really quite badly worn. You can wobble the rockers on the shafts. So I've already actually gone and pressed one of these bushes out, and unfortunately they're not available. I do actually have a few of the original ones in a spare stock I acquired. Now, North Leicester Motors Vehicles were selling these sintered bronze bushes, but they're actually the wrong diameter to go straight into the rocker. You need to machine the outside down from 15mm to 14mm, and being a sintered oilite material, they don't machine very nicely. Then when you press fit them into the rocker, that can compress the bore, and it may be too tight on the shaft. And ideally you don't ream the interior of an oilite bush, because it closes up all the pores and you lose the lubricating properties. So what I've done is I've got some Glacier DU bearings, which are steel, sintered bronze, and then impregnated with lead and Teflon. PTFE, DuPont being the owner of the Teflon brand name. Now these require a very good finish on the rocker shaft, and I'm going to be making some rocker shafts and virtually polishing them for that purpose, but otherwise they're dimensionally identical to the originals. However, you can see the original got quite scuffed up being pressed in, and the finish on the bore of this rocker was really quite poor, so I've cleaned that up with a 14mm reamer. The standard reamers are the correct tolerance for the bush to go straight in and the bush bore to end up the right size for the shaft. Now this one I improvised pushing it out, but I will actually machine up a tool to push the bushes out. Just a simple piece of steel with a couple of diameters on it to go in there. And then I'm going to do another tool for installing the bushes, because the bushes are nominally 15mm long. They actually come out at 14.9 or thereabouts, and the rocker is a little over 15. I mean, this may be slightly undersized as I've polished the sides of the rocker on my diamond hone, again to clear up corrosion. That one's just got a little bit of polishing to happen on it to get out the corrosion pits. So I'll be making a stepped tool that will push the bush in so it ends up central in the rocker. And I've got several sets of these to do, so it's worth making the tools. It'll actually save me a lot of effort overall. I've made up some simple tools for getting the bushes in and out of the rockers. So first thing to do, of course, is to push the bush out. Let's get some light in here. There we go. I'd already done a rocker, so I went to my spares box and pulled out an orphan rocker, not associated with a set of gear. I've got to get that set up over the bottom bush to give some somewhere to push into. Now this little extraction tool I've made has got a little pilot diameter, so it will sit neatly into the guide. And it's centred under the ram on the press, and then they come out pretty easily. Feel it fall through at the end there. One worn out bush. Now I've found that the finish on the inside of the rockers is fairly poor. So before installing a new bush, I want to ream the bore out, and I've got a 14mm reamer, standard class clearance, which is correct for the bush, and the solid material to be taken out. I can actually just turn it by hand. That one probably had less than usual, but it has actually removed material. Now, of course, I'm not putting a bush back into that rocker at the moment. I'm doing one of the actual ones for the set I'm doing. So there we go. Again, I'll set the bottom bush up. take my bush, which has got a split in it, and I'm setting the split to be at the towards the tip of the rocker. Most of the loads are on the bottom side. There's an oil hole in the top side, and not that it probably makes any difference, but the stamping with the bush size is on this side, so I'm going to put the other side at the top. Just get it started in there. Let's get a bit more clearance. So this is my installation tool. I just get it set up. Square. Bring down till we touch. Actually, it goes in nice and easy. As soon as I feel resistance, it's in the correct place, I put a step on the tool that centres the bush exactly where it needs to be, and there we go, one nicely centred bush. Now the next job will be to drill the oil hole. Okay, I'm doing this job on the milling machine just because the pillow drill's tucked away at the back at the moment and is a little bit hard to get to. Certainly hard to get the camera in. Now, in order to prevent us throwing a burr up on the inside of the bush, which would be difficult to remove, I've turned up a plastic plug that's a nice close fit inside the bush. It's going to be sacrificial, and I position the vise so it's acting as a little V-block. I can just get lined up. And I didn't feel any resistance when I pulled that out, and I can't actually see a burr in there. Haven't got the rod sharp to hand, but yeah, I can't actually feel a burr at all on the inside. So, job done. One bush installed.